We'll start our sessions with a quick meditation or relaxing of the mind, we should say. And we'll do that 5 minutes in between the session to relax the mind. I have been personally practicing mind relaxation techniques for over 7 years, and I find it helps my productivity and also helps in retaining knowledge a lot better. So we want to make sure you can retain all that you've learned by applying the theory into practice, but also taking a few breaks as well in between. So I'd like to welcome Sonika as well. She was here with us last time. Sonika Kohli, she's done her bachelor's in electronics computers. She also has a diploma in education. She's got her experience in networking as well. So she's an IT Wing a member as well. And she's worked throughout different countries, including Italy as well, and also worked for UN. So, and she's conducted a lot of sessions on stress management as well. So with that, request Sonika to get us started.
Thank you, Brother Mukesh. So let us start with some relaxation exercises and this meditation you say or relaxation technique you say. This is as important as we charge our mobile phone and to use all the application. So we need charging of ourselves. So these techniques are easy, but it needs practice. So we'll take few minutes and let us relax ourselves. So I request all of you to be available for next few moments. And I'll share some guided meditation, some guided thoughts, and you can follow these thoughts. So let us withdraw our attention from the outside world and let us give our attention completely in the present, in this moment. And I request you to be available physically and mentally in the present. And now just listen to the sound coming into your ears. Any sound coming into your ears, just listen to it. Now bring your attention towards your breath. Each and every breath as you are breathing in and breathing out. Just observe your breath while you are breathing in. Just feel the positive energy from the universe, from the nature, is reaching inside and going to each and every cell. And as you're breathing out, all the negativity, all the fear is moving out. And now there is peace, there is calmness left inside. And here we will take few seconds and we will express our gratitude to the Mother Nature. The five elements, the Mother Nature is nourishing me, keeping my body healthy, helping me to live this life. So I'm taking few seconds to say thank you to all the five elements. And now again, I'm back to my breath, observing each and every breath. And now slowly, we will bring our attention in the middle of our forehead. This is the highest place inside the physical body, and this is known as Agya Chakra. And as I am focused inside in the middle of my forehead, I'm experiencing there is a sparkling star, the source of life energy, and this sparkling star is spreading light, giving life to the whole body. This is a living light, and this living light is who I am. Now slowly, I am withdrawing my attention from the physical body and focused in the middle of my forehead, and I'm experiencing myself as a living light. And I, the living light, is full of peace. I am spreading light of peace inside the whole body. I am spreading light of peace outside in the atmosphere. My thoughts are so powerful now. They are spreading light, pure energy, powerful energy, and my whole body is experiencing this light of peace. The atmosphere around is becoming peaceful. Let us hold this awareness for a few more seconds. I am the living light, the light of peace. And this awareness is making me close to the Supreme Power, God, and making me experience as I am under His protection. I am under His supreme light, and my aura is spreading all around. With this awareness, I'm ready to come back. I am ready to play my role. I am ready to serve in this world. Thank you.
You are on mute.
Thank you for reminding me that. Thank you, Sonika Ben, for having our mind relaxed so we can focus better and absorb uh, Prashant teaching us. Uh, we will, the format for today would be similar as last week. We will cover the theory for the session. We'll do a quick refresh, a recap of what we did last week. We'll do the theory and then we'll do practical. We'll have Prashant show us how to do some of these things on the AWS cloud. Hope you've been able to create a free account. And while if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat window and we'll have a Q&A at the end again. So please do post questions. Okay. So we would have around about 60 minutes of theory plus lab with breaks in between. And we'll give a session for the next week overview as well. So we'll do a quick recap for those who missed last time. Can we get a quick number of people typing in the chat window who are new to this session for the first time? So that way we know how many are new and we can do a quick recap as well. So can you please tell us how many are joining for the first time? Thanks, Shubham. Welcome. Welcome, Mansi. We are only 2 new. Okay. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Ashish. Okay. So we've got quite few new members as well. So we'll do a quick recap. Those who already attended last week, this will be a quick refresher for you as well. So last week, we started with the basics of AWS cloud. What is the need of cloud? What are the different types of cloud? And what are the different cloud offerings, such as infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service? And we talked about what is a virtual server, what is a virtual machine, or what is server virtualization. So why do we need cloud? We organize cloud because their capability, they can just use it and rent it from whatever the platform as a service offering is. For example, if you want to have a database, instead of getting a hardware physical server and putting database on it, right, we can just provision a database instance on the cloud as such. So we don't have to get a server, install the software, manage the maintenance of that version of that database software, and have an admin constantly patching it, making sure there are no hardware issues or so on. So platform as a service provides a degree of abstraction for what, so we don't have to manage the underlying hardware infrastructure. However, many times we may not have that capability of a platform as a service on the cloud. So we still have to install our own software, and we still need that flexibility, especially if you're installing a third-party software, which doesn't have a software as a service offering. So you have to provision a virtual machine on the cloud, and that's what infrastructure as a service is. And many times, you may not even realize where it is stored and how it is being managed because you're just using it as a service. Example is Salesforce as a cloud or Gmail. You don't really know where it is, how is it highly scalable, what is a server, you don't care, you're just using that utility. So there are a lot of benefits for organizations to get quickly started with projects. If they're installing some third-party software, they need flexibility, how to configure it and so on. They'll go with infrastructure as a service. If they want to use a database, that would be platform as a service. And then using these tools, they can provide their product or offering as a software as a service as such. Extending the concept for the infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure includes a lot of things, servers, networking, routing, many other things. But the fundamental capability is creating a virtual machine. And to create this virtual machine, the reason why it is virtual or called that virtual name in the virtual machine is it is not the bare metal. So typically what we would do is we would get a hardware server with a lot of CPU and RAM, 100 CPUs, 256 GB RAM, or as compared to a laptop, which is just like 16 GB RAM. This hardware server, has a lot of CPU and a lot of RAM. And if need be, depending on the need for the computing resources, you can create multiple virtual machines, giving the impression that each of them is a server by itself. So today's session, we are going to build onto this theory and understand how to create a virtual machine. Now, these cloud fundamentals are basic. The theory is basic. But we are going to demonstrate these concepts on the AWS cloud, which is Amazon Web Services. So today, Prashant is going to tell us how to create an EC2 instance, which is what Amazon calls it for virtual machine. If you were on Azure, you would call it Azure Virtual Machine. So depending on which cloud you are, they would call a different name to that offering, but the fundamental capability is the same. It's nothing but a virtual machine. So let's get started. Prashant, if you can tell us more about how to create Amazon machine instance and what it is. I'll cover the theory
Sure.
part of it, and then we'll actually see it in practical. So in an AMI, right? So we are creating an EC2 instance, and so when you say we are creating an EC2 instance or a virtual machine, the question is, every virtual machine has its own OS. It could be Windows, it could be Linux, it could be Red Hat. You can pretty much choose whatever OS you want to it. And then every machine, you're going to configure how much CPU memory it has. Instead of you trying to configure it from scratch, for example, if you need MySQL VM, MySQL will already provide you and could provide you an AMI with MySQL on it, or you can select from a pre-configured virtual machine of a particular type or an image which has that software installed. But we need to know, or it couldn't have any software installed, but just the base OS as well. So you can have various customization. But essentially, it makes it easier for you to select what type of a VM you want. Do you want a lot of CPU, or do you want a lot of RAM, or you want a lot of disk space to attach to it? So depending what is the purpose of the VM, you will accordingly select the AMI as well. And sometimes if you're installing a third-party software product, the vendor who's providing that third-party software will also give a recommendation what type or what size should be this virtual machine. Next slide, please. So when you're selecting a virtual machine, and in addition to selecting how much CPU, how much RAM, how much memory you want to give, it also needs some kind of storage attached. A virtual machine would typically have block storage attached to it, but we want to cover the basics again. When we say storage on AWS, what are the primary types of storage that is offered on the cloud? And there are primarily three categories: block storage, object storage, and file storage. Traditionally in the past, right, block storage is the most commonly used, where you're splitting your data into multiple blocks. So if for big data platforms, you got a lot of data, you would go with block storage because you have a block of data as well. When you're attaching storage to your virtual machine, which has the operating system, all the program files and everything needed, that would go on a block as well. In addition to block storage, we have other type of storage. The most other common is file storage. So when you have on-prem data centers, it is very common for organizations to store their files and data on a file server or a file share, and share that data between different virtual machines or between different servers, and just dump the files on that file share. As we move to the cloud, instead of using file share, the trend is to use object storage, which is a lot more cheaper. And you can search for that data stored on the object storage using its metadata. So example of object storage on AWS is S3. So you have S3 buckets in which you can store the data, and it's very cheap as well. And you have an elastic file storage as well if you need the capability to be able to store files. And when you're doing a migration from on-prem to the cloud, you might have an existing file server, and you want to make sure your application, you're not making a lot of changes to it. So instead of using object storage, you want to use file storage, then you can certainly have that capability as well. File storage will give you a better performance because it's using solid state drive SSD, or it could be using magnetic drives as well. But if you don't need that performance and you just archiving data, you're taking backup, then S3 or object storage would perfectly work fine. You have Glacier, and you can archive this data as well. If you want to access this data using HTTPS, then you can certainly do that using, again, object storage. So file storage is pretty much used for internal file sharing for LAN networks, whereas object storage allows you to easily share beyond your network and using HTTPS as well. And block storage, it will be used when you're creating a virtual machine or using AMI. You can select block storage as well. Next slide, please. So
Thanks,
this
Mukesh.
lab, which Prashant
Yeah.
is going to cover, we'll see how to create an AMI, and Prashant will talk more about it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mukesh, for giving a good insight about Amazon Machine Image and block storage. So now we'll do a quick lab, like what is an AMI, Amazon Machine Image, and how can we create it, how can we customize it, and then we are going to look upon what kind of block storage is available on cloud, and how do we map it to your virtual servers. So I will just quickly go to my AWS console. Let me log into the console, and then I will be able to showcase you. Yeah, so now I am in the console. So as some of you are new and some of you might already been there in the previous session. So just to give you an idea, we have this section under EC2 wherein we have this AMIs. Okay, but if you go to the AMI catalog, you'll be able to see a whole lot of offerings here. There is Amazon Linux, and then there is Mac OS. Then we have Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So we have different images. Image is nothing but an operating system. So similarly, you have a smartphone which could be an Android or an iOS. So if you're using an Apple phone, then the image is basically iOS. And if you're using an Android phone, then it could be a KitKat or any other image, right? So machine image is just the operating system that is running over that machine, right? So similarly, I used this Red Hat image. This is Red Hat 8. I will type the Red Hat 7. So it will give me a couple of options. So I use this image basically, and then I launched virtual machine. So if I'll come to the instance section, I will be able to see that one of the instances running, and this is running on Red Hat Enterprise Linux that I used as an AMI to run this. But the issue is, the problem is that I picked up this this operating system directly from AWS, right? But I want my own AMI. I want to use my own AMI. I want to customize, like for example, this is just giving me an OS, but it does not have any application installed over it, right? So let me log into the virtual machine, and then we will be able to understand better. So I had created this key through which I am gonna log in. So as you know, the default user is EC2 user only. So last time, if some of you would be remembering, we deployed an basic website through this web server. So now if I see that if that website is available or not, so if I do this command systemctl status httpd, httpd is nothing but Apache server. What it says is that the service is not available. So now what I will do is, this is Red Hat. So if you'll do, as I was talking about the AMIs, and I was talking about that I had used this particular operating system AMI on cloud. So this is my operating system. But now I want to build my own AMI. I don't want to use any more the AMIs that are available on cloud due to any reason. It could be security or it could be anything. So what I do is, now let me install my own application on it, which is Apache Web Server, right? So if I type this command, press and enter, this is going to install an Apache application over this operating system. And then we are going to develop our own AMI, which will have Apache operating system by default integrated into that AMI. And I need not repeat those steps again and again to basically provision my virtual machine or virtual server. Right. So now it says that my Apache installation is complete. It has installed it. Now what I will do is, I will start this Apache service through this command. Okay, wait. I will enable the service, and then I will look at the status. So there seems to be some issue with this. Let me restart this thing. So no worries. I have installed my application over this machine. Now when I go back to the console, so now I have installed my application over this machine, and now if I come to the instance state actions, there is a option of here. If you'll come here, image and templates, you can create. If you go to the create image section, you just need to fill up the details. Let me fill up the details that this is what image name. So I can call it as Apache Web Server, because I have installed my Apache Web Server over this application, right? And then what is the image description? That I have installed Apache over Red Hat operating system, which is 7.7 version. So which means I was using this AMI, but then over this AMI, I am installing this particular application, and I am now calling the entire thing as a new AMI, which is Amazon Machine Image. Now the other option is no reboot. Now, if most of you are already in IT, then there are two kinds of backup. So if you're backing something, and if you're not taking reboot, right? So there could be some of the transactions that might not get stored in backup. they might not be a part of the backup that you're taking, might not be available in that storage, right? So when you are not enabling this thing, which is no reboot, then it is by default going to reboot the virtual machine and will capture the image of that operating system in that manner, so that every operation, every transaction is basically stored, right? And then what is this volume? This is the volume that is attached to that particular instance, whose snapshot is nothing but a backup will be created. So now let's go ahead and create image. So now it is saying that currently creating an AMI. So if I go to this AMI section, now it has already created this AMI, which is my Apache web server, and it is in pending state. Let me refresh the web page. So it is in pending state right now. So here you will get the description. Now what we will do is we can create our own virtual machines from this AMI. We need not select other AMIs, and we can directly create our own virtual machine through this AMI. So now there is an option here, launch instance from AMI. So if I will click here, launch instance from AMI. So here I just need to give a name, which could be Apache server, and then here it has already selected my AMI. I did not select anything. It has already selected my own AMI, right? Otherwise, if I can browse for more AMIs and I can select that way, but that is not required now because I want to provision a VM through my own AMI rather than purchasing an AMI from the marketplace. Okay, then I am using this particular instance and I will use this particular key to provision the instance, and then I will get a 10 GB storage along with my virtual machine, and then I can launch the instance. So here, pending. Okay, so it says that the AMI has not completed now. It might take a few more minutes. It is in it's showing in pending state. Yeah. So no worries. I think we have got the idea what basically an AMI is and what can we do with an AMI. So I think that helps, and going forward in other labs we are definitely going to provision more virtual machines, and there you will be able to understand how we are doing this. Now coming to the block storage section that Mukesh was already talking about. So you will see that under this section of EC2 we have elastic block store wherein we have volumes. Okay, volumes is nothing but you are creating if you're like, for example, you have a laptop and you have a 200 GB of hard disk. If that gets fill up, you will have to provision another kind of storage to increase the storage, right? So similarly, if your virtual server is going out of space, you can create a volume from this option, and you can select the size. If you want a 100 GB disk or a 10 GB disk, I will select 10, and then I won't go much into the other details to ensure that you don't get confused. Then I will do a create volume. So now you can see that we have this new volume created, and which is created in this particular availability zone. I think we should have created in this availability zone. So if we create in this particular availability zone, then we will be able to mount it on this particular instance. So how you can mount it is you will go to the actions, and then we'll be able to see attach volume option, which is grayed out. Because it is grayed out because our availability zone is different. We should have created it in this availability zone, and then we will be able to attach it to this particular instance, and then this is how we'll be able to increase the space as well. Okay, so this was all from that perspective. Now let me just showcase you one more example. Like for example, we all have this PC, right? We have a local C drive. So now if I go into the C drive, all I see is folder and files, right? So this is file storage. But when I there must be some of you who don't go with only one drive. They also create a local D drive, right? So how do I create a D drive? I go and partition this drive and create a D drive. So when my D drive is in the raw state, it is known as block storage. Okay, you cannot store any files to that until and unless you format that block storage the local D storage. It give a file system, then you are able to store files into it. So if you'll go to the properties, you'll be able to see that there is a file system which is known as NTFS. So unless and until the file system is not there, it is a block storage. And when you have given formatted the file system, then it becomes a file storage. So you can go ahead and keep storing your files. So I think I will now share the PPT again and hand over to Mukesh. So that was all from the AMI and block storage. Now he'll talk about more on load balancers and yeah. Over to you, Mukesh.
Thanks, Prashant. So we're going to talk about load balancer, but let's understand why do we need load balancer before we explain what's a load balancer. In organizations, the common problem is single point of failure. Let's take in this example, we deployed a virtual machine with Apache web server on Red Hat Linux, and we are hosting a website on it. What happens, if you bring the server down for applying a patch or maintenance, then your website will not be available for that time during which you are applying the patches or adding more functionality on that server. You're going to have a downtime. Many times, you are controlling your network, and there could be issues in which your EC2 instance could be down as well, resulting in unplanned downtime. So in organizations, especially anything which is customer facing, there's always a need that you want to make sure your software or the functionality that you're exposing over the web or whatever capability that you're offering is available, is highly available and available for your customers to use all the time. Even if you have, if that site is not available for an hour, it could lead to potential loss of business, especially when it's during busy time and customers are coming to buy something and they can't buy it, and it could lead to a very frustrating experience where they're trying to log in, but they can't do that because the website is down. So in order to have that high availability, and high availability is measured in terms of the percentage, as a percentage number. So usually we'll describe as number of nines the high availability. So if you're, let's say, you're building a software application, and if you say, my application is highly available, and it is highly available 99.999%, that indicates a number, how much unplanned downtime you can have. But if you say my application is 99.999, 11 nines, then it's extremely highly available. For example, in S3, AWS will publish it that S3 is going to be available. They will provide the SLA. The evolution of this concept is Docker containers. If you are as a service will internally but when you have your own virtual machine, traffic is routed to the virtual machine. Should I send it to and if even another common reason instance may not have that much handle volume. So in that case, you want to distribute the load, and that's why we use a load balancer. And AWS offers load balance.
Mukesh, there is a little breaking of voice from your end.
Or multiple servers. Okay, I'll
If
probably
you want,
rejoin.
I
Yes,
can
yeah, if you
meanwhile
want
take
that.
the
Yes,
flow
please.
forward.
Okay, yeah,
Right,
sure.
thanks, Mukesh. So, like to just give you a background about load balancer, like for example, you have one of the virtual servers whose capability is only to serve 1,000 user requests. Okay, but what if your business becomes famous and you attract more audience, and now there are more than 2,000 user requests that are coming to your website? Okay, then how are you planning to deal with such a user request? Now, if your business is even growing more, your website is gaining a lot of traffic. It is going beyond 10,000 user requests. How are you going to balance that traffic to ensure that your website does not crash? So to protect that, we established this elastic load balancer here. What it does is it distributes the traffic in round robin fashion. So if I have two instances and the capability of this particular virtual server is only to serve 1,000 user requests, then I will provision another instance, and based upon the traffic that is coming, my load balancer is going to distribute the traffic in round robin. The first request will go to this, the second request will come here, third here, fourth here, fifth here, sixth here, and so on. The distribution will happen. And if I have 10 number of instances under my load balancer, then each one would receive 10% of the traffic so that none of the virtual servers is overburdened to receive the traffic from users. Got it? Why do we need a load balancer? To protect ourselves from such situations where we become the load ourselves. And that is definitely going to impact your business. That is definitely going to impact the customer sentiments that those of your customers, right? So that is why we need a load balancer. Now going forward, let's do a lab on load balancing. You can create n number of instances, you can create n number of virtual machines from one AMI. If you want, you can even create 1,000 virtual servers from an AMI, right? So now let's do a load balancing lab wherein we are going to deploy a basic web server in one availability zone, and then we are going to deploy the second web server in second availability zone, but the website will remain the same. Okay, and then we are going to see how we can set up load balancing on both the web servers, and we'll then see the live distribution, how load is getting distributed on the website, and how your website is basically dealing with the user requests that are coming from the internet. Okay, now let's come back to the EC2 dashboard, and let me terminate all that which is not required. Let me sanitize all of this here. So this should be setting down. Now let me start from scratch. If some of you are new, then you will be able to understand now. I will start from scratch from basic AMI, right? So I will give a name which will be web server 1. I will choose an Red Hat AMI. It is just like when you're going to purchase a phone, you are selecting whether I need an Android or an iOS, just like you can choose your operating system from here for your virtual machine. So I need, just allow me a minute. So I will pick up this particular operating system, which is 7.7 Red Hat version. So similarly, there are a lot of Androids in market. You can go with KitKat, you can go with any version that you personally favor. And then I will choose continue. So it has, so right now, if you look at the AMI details, it is showing me this particular AMI which I have picked from marketplace. I have not developed it myself, right? But in the last lab, I had showcased you how I developed my own AMI. So now this is the AMI that I have opted from marketplace, and these are the details that I took this AMI from marketplace. It is marketplace is just like Play Store, and then I have this AMI for this architecture. HVM is the virtualization technology, and it is using Elastic Block Storage as a storage service. Then here I need to choose my hardware. I will go with the free hardware that is offered, which is T2 Micro. I will choose the key to log in on this particular instance, and this time we will also provision the network settings. Okay, so I will do an edit here, and this is my network. It is showing me that this is my network range. I will not touch it. I will select a subnet, and here I will select this subnet which is in US East. I will go with 1A. So 1A is my first availability zone in this particular region, and then I can select, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I will deploy my first virtual server in this particular availability zone, and then I will create a new security group. I will call it as my web server security group. And currently I am allowing these rules which are port 22 and port 80. Fine. Then I am provisioning a 10 GB of block storage to my virtual server, and then I can come here and launch this instance. So now I am launching one of my virtual server over which I now need to deploy my website. So here it's my web server 1. So you see that it is showing a lot of details about my web server, the private IP, the public IP, and then you can see what is the key that I have provisioned, and then under security you can even see what ports have been allowed, port 22 and 80 for all the traffic across the internet. So zone means there in cloud there are zones. So for example, if Mumbai is a region, then there are 2 or 3 availability zones, and then an availability zone has multiple data centers within. So uh, when we are deploying a highly available website, we deploy it in one availability zone and in another availability zone, so that if one of the zone is getting impacted through any disaster, let's say there is a lack of power supply, there is some kind of flood, that availability zone is getting impacted, then the other availability zone that is still available in that region will be able to host your website. So that is the purpose behind availability zone. So as you see that it only took around 1 or 2 minutes to provision a virtual server. You can see that it is in running state, and I just started it 2 minutes back. Now I can just copy the IP of this virtual machine. I can quickly go and log into that virtual machine. But if it had been not cloud, then it might have taken you some time. Because initially in traditional computing, people used to purchase physical hardware that used to arrive at their location in 15 days. So now I am logging to the virtual machine that I just created with the EC2 user, and you see it successfully authenticated me with this public key. Now what I need to do is I will go to become the root user, and then I will install the website through Apache web server, which is HTTPD. So if I do this command yum install HTTPD, it will install the HTTPD application, which is Apache, and then I just need to start the Apache service, and then my website is live. You can access my website from your end also. You just need to use that public IP address and nothing else. Yeah. So it has successfully installed my HTTPD. Now what I need to do is I just need to If I do this status and check the status of my Apache, it is showing that the Apache HTTP server is inactive right now. So what I need to do is I need to start it. So I just started the web server. Let me also enable it. What is the difference between enable and start? So once your virtual machine shuts down and you basically you are taking a reboot, then your service will not come up by default if you are not doing enable. So if you have done this command, then even if you're taking a reboot, your website will still continue to run. But if you're only doing start, and then if you by mistake took a reboot, then your website will not start by default. So I've now enabled it, and let me now do this thing. If I will go to the public IP address, which you all can see, let me also put it in the chat. If you will do, if you will go to this particular IP address, you will be able to see the website hosted at your end as well. So if I'll go to the HTTP now, you see that it has launched my website, which is a basic page kind of. So, but ultimately my website is working. So now what I will do is there is a path in the Linux, in the Red Hat operating system, which is cd where www folder, and then there is an HTML folder inside, which is the path of Apache index.html. So now I will create an index.html file here through which I will be able to customize my look of my website. So I will say I will write here my website, and down below I will give 1. 1 means this is my web server 1. So now I will save it. Now if I'll go to the server and I do a refresh, you'll be able to see that it is showing that this is my website and being hosted by web server 1. So this is a nomination that we can understand ourselves. Now, as far as like as you know that I have deployed one web server, but to load balance, we need at least 2 servers, right? So now I am going to go ahead and deploy another web server. Now, how can I deploy another web server? Like I don't want to deploy a server, then again install Apache, then again enable it, and then again start the service to deploy my website. How can I do this without doing all of these steps? How can I do this? So I will need to go to the actions and go to the image, and I need to create an image. Because when I create an image, all of these steps that I did will automatically be part of that image that I'm going to create. And when I launch an instance through that image, all of these installations will by default be available. So I need not do the efforts again and again. So now I will give the Apache Web Server AMI. I will say Apache installed over Red Hat 7. And then I will just click on create image, and then it is going to create this image for me. I just need to go in the AMIs, and I can see that one of my image should be in progress. Yeah, so here it is in pending state. I might have to wait a couple of minutes, but then it should be available. And then once it's available, I will deploy my second web server using this AMI, and this is how we'll be able to see what impact does an AMI create if you have to reduce your efforts. Now, this is just me showcasing you the importance of AMI, but consider yourself sitting in an IT company where you have to deploy thousands of servers, right? And what are you going to do on thousands of server? Are you going to install Apache each and every time? Are you going to do all those manual efforts each and every time? You would definitely not want to do the repeated efforts each and every time. So to reduce those efforts, you can create an AMI, just deploy everything on one virtual server, take an image and deploy 100 servers, 1000 servers in one go. Got my point? Yeah, so it might take a couple of more minutes. So it's showing me in pending state. So let's wait for a couple of minutes, and then meanwhile we can explore the other components that are mentioned here. So it gives you an AMI ID once you generate an AMI, and then it's telling me that this is a machine image, which means that the virtual machine that I am hosting can support this image. It's telling this the platform of this AMI is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Then it will be a block storage, which is elastic block storage. It will support x86-64 architecture. And then the virtualization is HVM, which is hypervisor virtualization. Telling the other dates, which are creation dates and other things. Then we come to the storage and let's look. It's showing the device name here, and it's showing that it is a 10 GB of volume. Then the volume type, which is GP2, means general purpose 2. General purpose volumes are basically which are used in general scenarios, like you are launching a website or you are doing some general work, right? But if you are doing some kind of standard work, for example, you want a database to be provisioned, then database requires a different kind of volume, which could be a provisioned volume, which is known as provisioned volumes. And why database requires that volume? Because database generally requires more read and write operations, right? So those volumes are particularly optimized for data operations in that manner, and generally databases like Microsoft SQL, MySQL are compatible with provisioned volumes. So we can also take a look on that going forward. So let me do a refresh again and see if the AMI is basically available or not. So the status is available, right? So now I see an option here which is launch instance from AMI. So if I click here, I need not do anything. I just need to give my web server name here, which I will give as web server 2. Then my instance is already selected. I need to select my key pair, and then I need to edit the network settings this time because I want to select a subnet which is different from the subnet that I selected previously. So previously I selected a subnet which was 1A. This time I would go with 1B, which is availability zone US East 1B, and which is having a network range of this. So this time I'm creating a subnet. I'm creating a different virtual server in a different subnet, and I will use an existing. I'm sorry. I will use this existing security group for my web server, wherein 22 and 80 port are by default allowed. So now I will click on launch instance, and now it is launching my instance. So I will go to this, and now I can see that one of the instances running web server 1 and the another is getting provision. So I will go inside and do a refresh. Yeah, so although I have got the IP assigned, but still it is in pending state. So meanwhile, what I can do is I can click this open address thing and see if my website is basically coming up or not, right? So what I need to do is I need to remove this HTTPS thing and do it HTTP because it is currently using port 80 only. Yeah. So now you see that my website is again running from this operating system, and I had to do nothing. I did not even log in to the virtual server using this SSH console. I did nothing. What I did is I just took an AMI and I just launched the instance from that particular AMI, and all of those manual steps got reduced to zero. I did not do anything. Now my website is running, but the only thing is that still it is showing one. It should show 2. This is the only thing that we should correct. But now we have two instances. First one is this. I will open the address for this one as well, and then I will go to the second one. I will open the address for this as well. So now if I will have a look at both of them, so let me do an HTTP again. It is working fine. And if I come here, I will do the HTTP again. So it's working fine. Now let me log into the second one, which is my web server 2, and correct this entry so that we are able to see during our load balancing that our load is getting distributed properly. Okay. So now I will select login using this key. Sorry, my bad. EC2 user. Yeah, I will become root user. I will have to go to the index.html file, which is located in HTML folder under this path. Sorry. Yeah. Now I will have to go inside. I will do this thing as 2 instead. Yeah. So now what happens is when I come to the dashboard, now this will show me 1. And if I go to this one, this will show me 2. Yeah, this one is showing 2 and this one is showing 1. Yeah, okay, all right. Now these are two different web servers running which do not have any connection with one another. Okay. Now we need to set up load balancing on these two servers. Like this one has a capacity of handling 1000 user requests, but uh, your business is growing, your website is getting more and more traffic. You want to be ready to serve at least 2000 or 3000 requests. Then you need to do load balancing definitely. Then we'll come down here and there is a section of load balancing. Let's come to the load balancer section and create a load balancer. So AWS offers 4 load balancers, which is application, network, gateway. We won't go into these advanced load balancers. We will simply set up a classic load balancer, which is there. And classic load balancer basically offers load balancing on these protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, TCP, SSL. So we will create a classic load balancer. I will give it a name, Apache load balancer. Fine. And then we are choosing port 80. We'll come ahead and then we will use an existing security group, which is my web server security group, as already ports are enabled here, port 80 and port 22. I will come ahead. Now this is the very important part where I would request your attention. So what is this? We are configuring health check. Health check of what? The virtual server, the web server. So here we are configuring that we are using HTTP protocol to balance the load. Then the traffic that is coming on 80 port should be balanced. Then this is our index.html path. Okay. Then this is the health check parameter. So what is response time out? So if you look here, if you are like if you're checking your health of that particular web server, so and if you are receiving a response in 5 seconds, okay, then it is considered to be a healthy response. And then after first response that you have received, the next health check will be done in 30 seconds, which is interval. The next checkup will be done after 30 seconds. And if you have not received two responses so far, then it is considered unhealthy threshold. And if you have received 10 responses which are positive, then it is considered healthy threshold. So this is the how you can define the health of your web server. And based upon these parameters, the load balancer will identify the healthy instances and unhealthy instances, because load balancer always distributes the traffic on healthy instances only. It does not distribute the traffic over unhealthy instances. So if your instance fails upon these parameters, the load won't get there. Okay, so response timeout basically means that I am saying hello to you, but you are taking more time to respond me hello. You took more than 5 seconds. Okay, then your hello is considered unhealthy. If you are responding to me within 5 seconds, then I will consider that you are an healthy person. You are having a, a good health. But the another time that I will check with you, I will speak hello again, will be after 30 seconds. Okay, which means now again after second time I need to check the health check. I will do it after 30 seconds, and again after 30 seconds, if your hello is taking more than 5 seconds, I will count it as two unhealthy threshold, and I will count it as two threshold and will consider you as unhealthy. Fine, but if I continue to do so even 10 times and you responded to me hello within 5 seconds, then I will consider that you are having good health. And this is how I will identify whether I should give you some load or not. If you are not in a healthy state, you won't be able to do my load, right? If you're in a healthy state, then only the load balancer will give you load to work out. Proceed ahead. Then here it is telling to choose the instances. So these are 1 and 2. I will select both of them, and here it is asking for two options. Let it them be default only. We don't need to add tags. Let's review and create. So now I have created my load balancer successfully. So now let me go to the load balancer, which is which is this load balancer details it's giving me here. So here it's giving me this thing, the DNS name. There are other more details as well, which we can see, but so it's telling that it's showing right now out of service, so it might take a couple of minutes here. Let me do a refresh. Instance registration is still in progress. So as we have selected these instances a couple of seconds back, so it might take these instances to register successfully, and then only it will allow us to distribute the load. So right now you see we have 3, 4, 5, 6 availability zones in North Virginia, which means US has this region North Virginia, and across the North Virginia region we have these 6 availability zones. And if by any chance one or two availability zones are not working, then your website, if deployed across other regions, will still continue to work. And each availability zone has multiple data centers. If one data center is also not working, then automatically the distribute workload will be distributed across will be transferred to another data center, and it will be hosted from there. So all of that things are well managed in AWS. So let me do a refresh again. Yeah, so now the status has come to in service, and now let's do the actual load balancing test. I will copy this DNS name, go to the another tab, and I will just put it and press enter. So you see, it's responding back to me, my website 1, which means that this time the load went to the web server 1. Now let me refresh this. Now the next time my website remains the same. This is my website, but the web server 2 responded this time. Now let me do again. Let me do again. Now you see that the round robin method has started to work, and my load is now getting balanced across two virtual web servers. So if I had not done this and my excessive user requests were coming, then my web server 1 could have crashed. But the load balancer is there. Now it will definitely protect your website during such scenarios, right? So this is where my load balancing lab is getting completed. So now I will hand over again to Mukesh. He will proceed ahead with the other topics. Over to you, Mukesh.
Thanks, Prashant. Do we need to take a break now, or we are good to get started with the next session?
Yeah, so we can take a bio break if everybody can take a
Yeah.
quick sip
And
of
for
water.
those who want to stay,
Yeah.
we'll have a mind relaxation technique as well. We have Dr. Raki, who's also part of our IT wing, and she'll help us relax our mind. And those who want to take a break, they can take a break as well. And the next part of the session will quickly cover high availability redundancy as well. So, Raki, if you want to help us relax our mind, that'll be great. Raki is based out of US as well, and she's been practicing uh, mind relaxation techniques for around 10 years as well. Thank you, Raki.
Morning, everybody, and greetings of peace. Let's just relax a little bit and be empty of everything that has happened throughout the day today. Just leave everything. Everything that we heard in the training, everything that has happened, good or bad, throughout the day. Any energy that we've accumulated since morning to evening, just leave it aside. Just let it go. This is our base point for mind relaxation. Just leave it aside. Let it be the way it is. Touch nothing. And from here, we become empty. Empty of everything. Empty of our desires. Empty of any aspirations, any worries, anything that is causing us to feel upheaval, anxiety, or ecstasy. Leave everything. Just sweep it aside. This is the energy of silence that lies within every individual. And we tap into this state, a very stable, silent state, by leaving everything, unassociated with everything external. Just unassociated with any information, any scene that we've seen, experienced, anything external. Disassociate from it. The mind will take us into many areas. It will make us wander, and it's okay. All we have to do is just leave it and be empty again. Empty. Just pay attention to being empty. This is a state of changelessness. There's no change in the state of emptiness. When we observe the mind, our mind can temporarily relax, maybe for a split half second, but it will wander. Relaxing the mind is not about controlling the mind. It's about disassociation and not giving importance to what the mind is thinking. It's not important. Whatever the mind wants, whatever pursuits an individual has, name it all. It is only for two purposes: happiness or peace. When I can experience that peace by leaving everything, and in this stable, silent state lies the true happiness, a relaxed state, unassociated with changefulness, a content state of mind. This empty state is the only thing that is in our control. Everything external is out of our control. So let us take control back into what we can tap into, turning within. Be empty, be empty. Leave everything and be empty. No need to even observe the mind. That could be a first step. We can observe the upheaval, the wandering nature. We can observe how the mind is connecting to the body, to the external world, to relations, to career, profession, material aspects, attainments. We can observe, but we have the power to be empty of all of this. Empty and in full control. The worst things could happen externally. The mind could feel horrible, depressed, angry, anxious. But I have the power to disassociate, to detach. Just pay attention to being empty. Just practice this, and I will be free. Liberation in life, the true purpose of life. Liberated from everything that changes. Being stable within. Empty, empty. Just empty. And if anything is very heavily bothering us, it's pulling us, it's denying us of experiencing this internal state, hand it over. Hand over that heavy burden, that bondage to time. Hand it over to time. I can control my present moment and how I feel. I can have full faith in time that whatever is bothering me at this moment will sort itself out. It will play itself through its scenes of upheaval. But eventually, with time, it will sort itself out and rest in peace. I have the choice to associate with it and experience anxiety and sorrow, or I have the choice to disassociate with it, have full faith in time, and be empty of it. with the power of faith. Again, let's be empty. Let's drop everything we accumulated from morning to evening. For a few minutes, every couple of hours, let's tap into this inner peace, the state of deep silence, of emptiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raki.
Thank you, Dr. Raki.
So we'll move on to the next, the last phase of our session today. And you saw when Prashant was creating the EC2 instance, it was asking what region is it. So we'll just quickly cover the need of multiple regions and availability zones. Again, this is the general concept, not restricted to or uses multi geographic region. It could be the US, East Coast, it could be India, it could be Singapore. AWS has multiple regions throughout the world in which it offers its services. Within regions, you have available so for example, we or more multiple data. We need multiple data centers. If there's a flood in that region, uh, it's possible that other data center in that availability zone may not be affected, and your application would still be highly available within that zone. But let's say it's a major event in that region as well, and not only all your data centers for the availability zone, but all your availability.
Hi Mukesh, there might be again some network issues from your end. So there's some voice breaking from your end. Okay, no worries. So meanwhile, I will continue the flow. So can you all confirm? Am I audible properly? Is my voice audible properly? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, so let me go ahead with the flow. So what Mukesh was talking about was the various levels of redundancy and high availability that AWS Cloud provides. So first of all, AWS has their availability across multiple geographic regions. Like they are available across 27 geographic locations, and there are multiple geographies like US, then Middle East, then India as well, and then Australia. There are multiple geographies. And then within those geographies, there are regions. For example, in India, we have Mumbai as region. So in Mumbai, there are 3 availability zones as of now. So what is the region difference between a region and an availability zone? So the region is a bigger entity under which availability zone is a sub entity. So within Mumbai, we have 3 availability zones which could be placed across different locations around Mumbai, so that if one of the location is getting impacted due to any reason, it could be power supply or like heavy rains or like flood or anything as such, then still the other 2 availability zones can help customers go on, continue ahead with their websites or their cloud resources. Got my point? So this is basically the reason behind these things are architectured in such a manner. Then within availability zones, we have multiple data centers. One availability zone can have around 2 to 5 data centers at max. Okay, so if one of the data center is again facing the same issue, power supply issue or any issue as such, then those particular data or applications are immediately migrated to the other data centers within that availability zone to ensure that the business is not impacted. Your website is basically running all the time. And then within data centers, there are multiple hardwares which support your resources, like your virtual machines, your databases, everything. So if one of the hardware is getting impacted due to any hardware failure, then your application, your virtual machine is immediately going to get transferred to a healthier hardware and to ensure that your resource, your workload is not compromised. It does not have to suffer through that. So there are various levels of fault tolerance and redundancy and high availability available across the cloud. So uh, if you will look at the point 3 and 4, these are automatically managed by AWS. So you do not have to worry about your data center, your getting impacted and your hardware is getting impacted. This is something that AWS takes care of, but you have to take care of your deployments across availability zones and regions, just like we did. We deploy our website, so we manually selected the availability zones, right? But there was no option of selecting data centers and hardware. So this is automatically taken care by AWS. This is something that we take care ourselves. Okay. Now coming to the next slide, what is auto scaling? So uh, I know you all must be crazy about Diwali and you must all be shopping on Amazon and Flipkart. So uh, or what when do we need auto scaling? So auto scaling is required when you really cannot guess your your business requirement. For example, we have this Diwali. Everybody in India loves to shop. Like some people go to market and then some people do not go to market. They go to Amazon.com, Flipkart, and purchase a lot of things. So generally, if you look at the general trend, generally the Flipkart and Amazon are having normal business, but during even sales like Diwali, Christmas, and then Dashera, people are purchasing a lot of things on Amazon. So you can estimate that around 3 or 4 times the traffic is increasing on Amazon's website. So how does Amazon make sure that it is having enough resources in the background to face that workload? Like for example, if they were receiving 1 lakh user requests every day, but then in Diwali time they will get around 4 lakh user requests every day, right? For that we basically need infrastructure also in the background to support such a huge request. If you have 100 servers in general, if okay, so if you are having 100 servers normally, so yeah, elasticity and auto scaling go hand in hand. They are basically almost the same thing. So if you are having 100 servers normally, then during Diwali time, you will need to have 400 servers in the background to ensure that your website is able to take up that traffic in an healthy manner. Okay. So during such scenarios wherever there is events, for example, there is a cricket match, okay, and your business is oriented around cricket match, then uh, if it had been a normal match, then it's okay. But if it is an India Pakistan match where the concurrency is going to be above lakhs of people are going to watch that match, then you need a very good infrastructure in the background which can be easily scalable without manual efforts. If you want to scale from 100 servers to 400, that should be automatic. You need not do the calculation and identify, okay, if this is an India-Pakistan match, I can expect 300 more virtual servers or something like that. You cannot go with that calculation because that is something really you cannot predict. You have to do auto scaling And based upon the traffic, based upon the resources getting utilized, the it will automatically decide how many servers to scale and how many servers to terminate. Fine. So we will check on how we can set up auto scaling, but I know uh, we are 10 minutes over time. So based upon like the audience suggestion, if you want to do the lab, we can go ahead, and if you want, we can take the lab in the next session. Okay, so what all will your suggestion be? Okay, so let me go ahead and showcase you the auto scaling lab. It should not take more than 10 minutes. So thank you everyone. So let me go to the console. So first of all, let me terminate all of these instances that I have provisioned. So now they're getting terminated. So now I will deploy a new instance from the AMI that I have already created. So no, I need not directly launch an instance. I can directly go to the auto scaling group. So now let me see if we have already a launch configuration. Let me delete that and let me explain you from starting so that you are also able to you understand all the concepts. So now I need to create an auto scaling group. But before I create an auto scaling group, I need to create a launch configuration. So what is a launch configuration? Now, for example, you know that your 100 servers that are hosting, for example, a website, it could be example.com, it could be amazon.com. Okay. Then this is Diwali peak sale time and you're expecting 4 times more traffic and you have to scale according to that demand, right? So what once your traffic has started to increase, what are you going to do? You need not do anything. You just need to fill up this template, which is known as launch configuration. You just need to fill up all the details. For example, I will call it as my web server autoscaling group configuration. I need to select an Amazon machine image. I will choose this image that I had created during the last lab. Just allow me a minute. Let me check if this one is the right image. So I need to select Apache Web Server AMI. Yeah, I selected the right one. Then here I will choose the instance type, which is my hardware. I will type T2 micro, which is the free one. And then I need not do any other thing. My root volume will remain 10 GB only. I will select an existing or existing security group, which will be my web server security group, which is having all the ports by default. I will select my key and then I will create my launch configuration. Why do I need my launch configuration? Now, this is the important point, because when my instances have to scale out, I will not have time to fill up these details. I will not have time to provide all these details. It should be so automatic and so agile that it automatically knows what action it has to take during such a business critical scenario. It should not ask me whether which AMI should I opt for, what should be the hardware type, what should be all of these at that time. I like that would be a disturbing situation if it asks for such information at that time, right? So that is why I need to create launch configuration in advance so that once auto scaling is getting done, it will just reference to this configuration template and will pick up all the details and launch the instance with those details. Okay. Now I have my launch configuration at its place. Now I will go to the Autoscaling group, click on Autoscaling group. I will give a name, which could be my, let me give Apache Autoscaling group. Now I will switch to launch configuration. I will select my launch configuration, which was just created. Let me do a next. Now it is asking me for network details. Let me select 1A, 1B. I will select two availability zones so that my web servers are distributed across these availability zones to ensure fault tolerance. So if one of the availability zone is not available at some point of time, then at least my other availability zone is hosting some of the virtual machines to at least make sure that my website is running. Now this is health check grace period. So it will take 300 seconds to evaluate the health of that particular web server. Now this is quite a lot of time to do a practical, so I will keep it at 60 seconds so that we are able to complete our practical on time. Now it is asking for scaling policy. Okay, so now we will have to set up a kind of scaling policy. Scaling policy is nothing but a decision making. When do you want to make a decision that this is the right moment to add more instances, to add more virtual servers in the background to distribute the workload? So we will set up this policy. So there are multiple options available here, like average CPU utilization, average network in, average network out, and then application load balancer request count per target. So I will go with the CPU utilization, and my decision would be if my web server CPU utilization is going beyond 50%, which means my CPU utilization is getting more, like it's getting more, it's getting utilized more than 50%, then it is a sign that I need to add in infrastructure in the background to ensure that my incoming traffic is taken care in the proper manner. Okay, so I will need to, before including in the matrix, I will add 60 seconds here, and then I will do a next, next, next. This is asking me for a review. I am fine with all of this. So yeah, so I think I missed to mention the group size. So this is an important step I might have missed. Yeah. So this is one of the important section in auto scaling. So what is desired capacity? Desired capacity is what is the normal capacity that should run all the time. Yeah, we'll check on that as well. So let me keep the desired capacity 1, minimum capacity as 1, and then maximum capacity as 2. So I'm keeping maximum 2, which means my instance scaling will not go beyond 2 servers. Okay. After 2 server, it will not go to third one. Minimum I'm keeping 1 because you can only keep 1 server. You cannot go to 0. There has to be a server running. And then I'm also keeping a desired capacity as 1. So now let me do next. So now my auto scaling group is created. Let me go into the auto scaling group. It's showing my desired capacity is 1, minimum capacity is 1, maximum capacity is 2. Because minimum capacity is 1, it should automatically deploy a web server. Not a web server, but a server. You can see all the details here. And if I will come to the activity part, you can see what is the activity that is going on at this moment. So it is telling me that pre-in service, which means it is now launching a new EC2 instance. It is giving me this EC2 instance ID, and it's telling me a complete message here that at this time, a user request created an auto-scaling group, changing the desired capacity from 0 to 1. Because minimum is kept 1, so now it is deploying one web server to ensure that our condition is fulfilled, which is minimum 1, desired 1, and maximum 2. And instance 1 started in response to a difference between desired and actual capacity, increasing the capacity from 0 to 1. And it has mentioned the time here and everything. So now let me do a refresh. So now it's telling that my launching a EC2 instance is successful. I can go to that particular instance. Now under the instance management, it will show that this particular instance has been created, which is in service. This is the hardware type. And this is using this launch configuration deployed in US East 1A, which I had already selected. And this is healthy right now. So now what I will do is I will go to my EC2 dashboard running. Now you see that I had deleted all those instances that were there. Now it's showing me this particular instance. So now let me log into this particular instance. Okay, I will log into this particular instance. Do SSH, put the public IP on, use the private key. Fine. Now I've logged into the instance. Now let me look at the CPU utilization. Top is the command, top, through which you can have a look at the CPU utilization. So right now my CPU utilization is showing 0%, like 0.3. So it will continue to fluctuate. It will show 0.3, 0.5. It like it's nil almost. So you can consider this is that your CPU is not getting utilized at all. Fine. Now, what we will do is we will manually increase the CPU utilization. Through some commands, we can increase the CPU utilization and see if the CPU utilization going beyond 50% is actually scaling out another instance or not. Fine. Let me come out, and then we have this command, which if I run, will automatically increase the CPU utilization. Now I have run this command as a background job. Now if I will run the same command again, which is top, you'll be able to see that this yes command has almost taken the CPU to 99.9%. Okay, which can also be monitored through here. I will come to the instances. These are all terminated. This is the only running one. I will come to the monitoring section. Okay. And then we have the CPU utilization. I will open up. Instead of 5 minutes, I will select it as 1 minute. Just to let you know that the metrics here takes at least 1 minute of time. So only after 1 minute, we'll be able to look at the actual utilization, how much is going on. So we'll have to wait for a minute till then. But let's continue to monitor here that it's showing 99% utilization. Right. So it is definitely beyond the 50% limit that we have configured on AWS Autoscaling group. And as per our configuration, we should expect that it is going to add one more EC2 instance, one more virtual server in the Autoscaling group along with this instance. So right now, as you see, right now we only have one instance running, right? We do not have any second instance which is running. Now, as per the condition, we should have a second instance running very, very soon because the condition in our auto scaling group says so. So here, as I have configured maximum capacity 2 and my tracking policy says that add or remove capacity units as required when the CPU utilization is beyond 50%. Okay. So as per this condition, I should expect a second instance very, very soon. Let me come to the activity. So nothing is coming here now. So let me go to the monitoring section and do a refresh. So it is might take some more time. I think not sure what is going wrong. Let me refresh it again. Yeah, so it took some time to bring the metrics here. So now if you see at 12:15, like this, this is showing some other time zone, but within this time frame, in 5 minutes, our CPU utilization went from 0 to 70%. Okay, now it's showing for 5 minutes. Let me do for 1 minute. Yeah, so it is exceeding 70%. Now, now it has gone beyond 50%, right? Now we should expect some kind of activity in our auto scaling group. Yeah, you see that as soon as it went above 50%, there is another activity here which is saying that I am launching a new EC2 instance to basically ensure that the condition that I have assigned is maintained. So here it is telling that a monitor alarm target tracking Apache ASG alarm high in state alarm triggered policy. Change the desired capacity from 1 to 2 at this particular time. An instance was started in response to a difference between desired and actual capacity, increasing the capacity from 1 to 2. So so now it has started another instance to ensure that auto scaling is in place. Now let me go to the instance section. So now you see we have another instance coming up, which is an initializing phase, but ultimately the auto scaling group uh, did its purpose, right? So this is how the auto scaling works. So now if I kill this job that is running in the background and consuming all the CPU, let me kill this job. Now my CPU utilization will come back to normal, which is 0.0, right? Now my expectation is that this new instance that is getting launched will be terminated as soon as my monitoring, I mean, as soon as my CloudWatch monitor recognizes that, just a minute. Yeah, as soon as this CloudWatch like CPU utilization metrics goes down below 15, it should immediately terminate the other. Yeah, it has automatically identified that now the utilization has gone below 50% and it has now terminated the instance. So if I come to the auto scaling group, do a refresh. Let me do a refresh. So I think it is not updated right now, but we can expect to see it in some time. No, right now both of them are running, but it might take some time to identify this thing. As also during the last time, the monitoring took some time, at least 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, so it might take a minute or more, but then I'm sure enough that we will see very soon a new activity here which will say that as your instance utilization came down below 50%, we are terminating the additional instance to make sure that the configuration that you have defined is balanced. So let me continue to refresh here. Are you all finding it useful, or are you able to connect with all of this? Great, great to see that. I hope you were able to catch the concept that I was trying to explain at the business scenarios where it these services like auto scaling and load balancing are supposed to be established. So now you get an idea that whenever these sales are active, whenever there is this big billion day sale of Flipkart or any huge sale like that, or there is a huge cricket match getting streamed on Hotstar or Disney or any web portal, then you can understand that what goes in the background. There's a lot of load balancing, there's a lot of auto scaling in the background because sometimes the population that is watching a match could be 8 million, and it can even go beyond 1.5 million as well. So that those are just numbers, but you cannot calculate what will be your exact and what should be your exact preparation. So because the data has gone, the the prediction cannot be done so accurately. That is why you need auto scaling. But consider this moment to go back in the traditional computing environment wherein wherein companies were establishing their own data centers. Now just visualize how are they going to do load balancing? How are they going to do auto scaling? They will have to write their own algorithms, their own programming. They will have to set up their own technologies to build such kind of solutions, which is so easily available on cloud, which is load balancing and auto scaling. And you would be amazed to know that auto scaling is a free service. You don't even get charged for auto scaling. You only pay for the compute that you're using. Let me do a refresh again now. Yeah. So as you saw here, that the instance utilization has come down from 72, which is 53%. So within a few more seconds, we are expecting it to come down below 50 as well. But now let me refresh the activity here. So it has not yet taken the action because it is so accurate. It will only take the action once it is below 50. So right now it is showing 53. Where was that? Yeah. So right now it is showing 53.9. So it is so accurate that it will only act upon that once it is below 50. I will continue to refresh. Yeah, it has come down to 53.5, but yeah, it might take. So it might take 30 seconds or a minute more to complete this. So I think meanwhile, let me check what is the next thing that we have in place. Okay, free tier account. So yeah, I think that would be a good opportunity to at least showcase you. Meanwhile, this is happening. So meanwhile, let me showcase you the free tier account thing and give you some precautions that you must consider while you are experimenting on free tier. So AWS certainly offers a free tier account, which is generally available to you for 12 months, and you can utilize your AWS free tier account for 12 months. But be precautious as it does offer a lot of services which are free, but do not provision something that is going to unnecessarily cost you. So you can come to this portal, type on Google AWS free tier account, and then you can see, look at all the offerings that are free. So if I'll come to the compute, you can see that you have 750 hours every month, which are given free if you're running any EC2 server. Then you have access to other services like object storage, S3, RDS. You can create your own database for 750 hours a month. Then you have other services as well. Then you have database, which is again 750 free for 750 hours, storage, containers, and other services. Machine learning is also a service available. You can use SageMaker for 2 months to experiment around machine learning platform. But be precautious that once you are experimenting, do ensure to delete all your resources on time so that you are not accruing unnecessary cost. Most of the times people forget, they just postpone or they just delay it, but then they forget and they realize that the huge bill has accrued over their invoice. So be precautious and don't attempt any such thing whenever you are experimenting. Just delete your resources as soon as it is getting completed, right? And whenever you will create a free tier account, it will ask for a two rupees payment. Do go ahead and do that, as those 2 rupees will also be refunded. It is just a validation exercise, but then be precautious about whatever you're doing and be make in, be in, like ensure that you're deleting everything on time. So that is just one precaution from my side. Now let me refresh this again. So it is again taking some time. Yeah, so it has come down now. Let me refresh the page. Two minimum capacity. So it's taking time. I know it will take more time, but I think you have all understood the concept, right? So ultimately, it will terminate the instance, but it may take more time. So there's no need to wait till then. So I will proceed ahead with the other things. So yeah, I think now we have Q&A session, and then also let me show you what is the next session agenda. So as 23rd is a Sunday again, and we are approaching Diwali, so we won't have a 90-minute session there. We'll have a 45 to 60-minute session wherein we can do a revision of all that we have covered. We can take up your questions and do some kind of hands-on labs that you would suggest. We can do that. So now we will also request you to provide your valuable feedback so that we are able to improve. And as Mukesh has already mentioned, that your negative feedback is going to help us the most. It will improve us going forward. So I will put this in the chat. You can please fill up this survey as soon as you're here. So request you all to fill up this survey meanwhile. And then and then we can take up your questions once you have all filled up your surveys. So there is no charges if you are using free services on AWS. As I already mentioned, you're getting 750 hours of EC2 instances every month. So if you continue to use in that manner, which means that you are running an EC2 instance completely 24/7, you will not have to pay a single penny. But if you're running multiple EC2 instances continuously without stopping for over a month, then you might end up with some bill. So be precautious about those things and maintain that you're only consuming 750 hours of EC2 running hour time, right? So after 12 months, you will be charged based upon the prices that are mentioned on the AWS console with respect to an AMI. So some of the AMIs cost you around $0.015 every hour. So on that pricing mechanism, you are going to be charged. So among various cloud platforms, AWS is the most leading cloud platform today in the market. It is the best best cloud service provider today in the market. We still have other competitors in market, but still AWS is leading in the front. So, Govind, you have asked, can we put timeline for CPU utilization? Example, if CPU utilization is 50% continuously for more than 15 minutes, then it will decide to auto scale. Yes, definitely. As you must have seen that I configured the health time to from 300 seconds to 60 seconds. So before it was taking a decision after 5 minutes of observing the CPU utilization. If you configure 1500 seconds there, then it is going to wait for 15 minutes and then it will scale out or scale in based upon whatever that thing. But you need to set up your seconds in that health column there so that you are able to act accordingly. So any more questions from anybody? So Pooja, EMR is Elastic Map Reduce. It is basically a service that is related to big data and Hadoop. So that is not something part of today's curriculum, and we might not. I personally might not be able to shed more information on that as I have no exposure to that service. But as far as I know, that is a kind of big data service that helps in analyzing and processing big data.
For those who are interested in big data, please do give us that feedback, because then we can arrange a session for big data. I've worked for big data for over 8 years. I can tell you how the evolution of big data platform has worked. But what we are doing now is going to be a good foundation for the big data platform as well, because you need to understand how storage works, what object storage is, and so on. So please do give us that feedback if you need to learn more about big data as well.
Yeah, request you all to submit your valuable feedback through the link that I have provided in the chat. We'll also be sharing this deck with you. You can also find the link there, but would request you all if you could submit your feedback right away.
Okay. With that, would like to thank you all for your participation. I'd like to thank all our panelists, including our IT National Coordinator, Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, and many others behind the scenes who tirelessly work to make sure all this continues as well. We will continue improving and making sure we start on time as well. So apologies for getting delayed again this time, but we'll make sure we get better at it. So thank you again and have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.